All right, well, this is a sad story. Actually, we've got a great report, though, to tell you about how much money we've raised to help this young boy right here. We now know that the suspect in the Southern California drunk driving hit-and-run crash that left the 6-year-old little Lennox Lake with severe head trauma was an illegal immigrant with an extensive criminal history. The man behind the wheel, now identified as Constantino Banda Acosta. He had been deported 15 times since 2002. So how does something like this keep happening to our innocent families, innocent children here in America? Our next guest says that it is because Chula Vista is part of the Welcoming America network of cities and can't enforce federal immigration laws. Joining me now is Chula Vista City Councilman and legal immigrant Mike Diaz. Thank you so much for being with us, Councilman.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Before we get into the juice of this story, I want to ask you to tell your story, please. How did you become an American citizen? You were born in Mexico, and then now you're a councilman in Chula Vista. How did that happen?
Well, it's a long story. My grandparents lived in Tijuana, where I was born, and during the Revolution, they moved up into Los Angeles, where my father was born. And then after everything settled down, they moved back into Mexico, and we were born in Mexico. And then early on, when I was barely, 3 or 4 years old, we moved back into the United States, and I became a naturalized citizen in 1982 after deciding to take on a job as a firefighter, and I retired 27 years as a professional firefighter.
Wow. Firefighter, you're a legal citizen, you're a Republican, you love this country, and you are against sanctuary cities?
I am against sanctuary cities.
Why?
I believe we're a nation of laws. You look at Central America, where most of these folks are coming from nowadays, and they're leaving a lawless nation, and to indoctrinate them here, and the first thing we tell them that you don't have to be here, you can be here illegally. I don't see how that works out. I think people are coming to the United States because we are a nation of laws, because this is where you can make a great life for you and your families, and it's because of those laws that provide us with those opportunities.
You know what, Mike, we wonder how this continues to happen, how someone who's deported 15 times gets back in our country and then does this to a young, innocent little boy. If you look at the statistics, 58% of overall ICE removals, the criminals that ICE is going in and trying to deport, including 92% of ICE removals initiated from the interior part of our country, they were convicted criminals. So almost 60% of those that ICE is apprehending are convicted criminals, and they're still here in this country. How is this happening?
Well, I think there's a disconnect between the different agents, law enforcement agencies. And I thought, as a firefighter, I thought we would have learned after 9/11, where the 9/11 Commission said, hey, the problem in America with regards to public safety is we are not talking to each other. And so when I look at sanctuary cities, that's where I see the huge disconnect. I thought we were never going to forget that incident, and so I think it's important that we don't forget that. And so, but I think what people need to understand when we talk about immigration status in America, that it really doesn't happen at the local level. What happens is when our police department makes contact with an individual and they have committed a crime and they are arrested and booked into our jail, they are then at some time they are then transported to the county jail where the sheriffs then process these people, and that's where we start seeing the different pieces moving. Like we hear about the detainers for request. That's where that happens at the county level. And that's where the big disconnect is happening. If you talk to local law enforcement people, the people down at the ground floor, the people in the different cities, they tell you that in order to do good proactive policing, being able to communicate with the citizens, find out where the crime is happening, really when you really get into asking the status of immigration, it doesn't help.
Mike, there's so much
But
red tape. I mean, to hear you say this, there's red tape, there are regulations, one department against another department. But this has all got to be worked out because families are affected. We interviewed little Lennox Lake's dad yesterday. He said he lives close to the border. They never thought something like this could happen to their family, but it is, and it's happening to folks that live in your area, and it could happen to any of us. Our children are our pride and joy, and this is something we don't want. This is our worst nightmare as a parent. There is good news this morning, Mike. Yesterday, we interviewed the dad. They had raised $21,000 on the GoFundMe page. Look what it is today, almost $76,000. He's already had several surgeries because his dad said, it's terrible to say, but his dad said when they found him in the car, his wife was holding her child. He was unconscious. He had blood coming out of his ears, his mouth, his nose. They didn't know if he was going to make it. So he's had several surgeries. But this guy was deported 15 times, and he needs to get out of our country because this poor family is affected now. Thanks for being with us, Mike.
Absolutely. And you know, if I could just say, that's the problem we have. This individual was processed by our police officers, had contact 4 different times for violent crimes, for assault on a spouse. Yeah. And he didn't
Mike,
belong in our
if you
country.
have any control over or can talk to council members that live in that area, this is ridiculous. Someone needs to be held accountable. 15 times, there's no excuse.
There isn't.
Thank you so much for being with us. Have a great weekend. God bless you.